What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Eastern Current. Excited about our guests we've got on tonight and our topics. We're going to be talking about some of the inshore fishing that the Pamlico Sound has to offer, and kind of a unique look at some tactics and some styles of fishing that our guest Greyson Davis does, which is going to be a real cool topic. I think it's something that would, if I was up there, I would try to key in on a lot and do a lot of. But before we get into that, one other thing, we're going to be talking conservation as well. So if that interests you, this is a good podcast for you. One other thing that I wanted to jump into beforehand is if you do really like this podcast, you can support us financially through what's it called, Patreon. We have a Patreon account set up, and you can go in there and give us a small donation of $5 or $10 a month, like a cup of coffee or a hamburger. Really, it's not too much, and it just helps us pay for all the back end stuff and helps us with a lot of the subscriptions and stuff we pay for the software that we run all this through. The other thing is our Facebook group online, Eastern Current Fishing. It's a private Facebook group for listeners to be able to join together and hopefully make some buddies, make some friends, some fishing buddies. You get out in the water, ask any questions through the group, and just kind of create a community there. Also, go check out our Instagram. It's just Eastern_Current, and you can find us there as well. But before I kick all you off here with my rambling, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest, Greyson Davis. What's up, man?
Well,
Oh, nothing much, man. Excited about our episode tonight. We've been talking about it for a while, and glad we're finally making it happen.
yep. Tried to get you up on the duck hunt. Got sick.
Yeah, man. I just hate duck hunting. I just don't like traveling to duck hunt. I'm just kidding. Well, cool. Well, let's jump into it. First off, kind of tell everyone your backstory. How'd you get into fishing, and how did it bring you to where you are now?
Really, my dad and my great grandmother. She used to carry me down to a pier in Belhaven when I was little and sit there and catch pinfish and croakers off the dock till hell has been.
Yeah.
And then when I was in high school, we were living in New Bern, and even before that, my dad had bought a boat, and so my passion for fishing kept growing. And then he sold that. And then when I got to high school, started driving and got my own boat, and had a 14-foot Southern Skimmer John boat, beat around the creek with, and got to learn a lot doing that. And I think then I had it for almost 6 or 7 years now. I just recently started guiding and taking people hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
So don't really, kind of like everybody else's. Dad got you into it, and then you just kind of took it from there.
For sure, kind of ran with it to an extreme.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it as well, was with my dad, just doing some Spanish mackerel fishing growing up off the beach, and just kind of snowballed from there. I'm kind of all in it now. I'm too deep to go do anything else at this point. I'm all in.
Hopefully addicted.
Yeah, totally addicted for sure.
Could be worse things, right?
So, yeah, definitely. So or do you live? Where exactly do you live up there in along the Pamlico Sound?
Fairfield.
Okay.
On the end of Lake Mesquite.
Gotcha.
I actually used to live in the Swan Quarter right by the high school.
Okay,
but
sweet.
That house got sold, so I had to move out.
Yeah.
So
That usually happens.
I ended up leaving and going back over to the north side of the lake.
Right on. Well, I think what interested me the most when we were talking pre-show about what we were going to talk through here was kind of your insight. And what it reminds me of is the Florida Keys and how there's a lot of shallow water inshore wrecks that are really productive. And you were telling me about how there's a lot of those in the Pamlico Sound and some humps and some oyster bars out there that are really good for kind of shallow water bottom fishing, if you will. So take me into kind of what that looks like, what you're looking for, and kind of start with the different options of that kind of inshore bottom fishing.
Well, your first option is you better take a look at the weather.
Yeah.
Because if it's that's what makes it so hard to get out there, and actually it's a lot of time invested in going out there, and when it's rough like that, you can't fish. I mean, it's hard to do it.
Right.
But the time that you take when you go out there when it is pretty is really actually precious because you don't really get to do it often. It's not like when you know it could be blowing northeast at 10 to 15 and you can get on the bank and fish the bank fine. But if it's blowing 10 to 15 out of northeast and you try to go 10 miles in the sound, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wind has time to build all the way from Oregon Inlet to where you're at. So look for the calm days. Then, you know, it also helps the bottom's not as stirred up. So it also helps you fish in there. Typically, bait-wise, I mean, and what we're targeting, I mean, you kind of go full bear. You can throw a lot of soft plastic. I like to throw bait. That's just me. Hard to find filler crabs up there. I got one spot that if the tide is just right, which all of our tide is wind driven, I can get them. But other than that, good luck. So thankfully, I thank my buddy Corey Carroll at Madam's Seafood for he'll put a box aside and I'll pay him for them. Blue crabs, pop shell off, break them in half. I use scissors. Scissors are a lot easier cleaning them. And typical, just double drop, single drop, bottom rig, 1 ounce weight, and make sure you got a lot of them because you're gonna lose them.
Yeah, for sure. Those blue crabs, man, when you quarter them up like that, they stay on the hook really well. Like you can fish through a lot of crap fish and.
Yep, and especially so my personal favorite out there is probably sheepshead and black drum. Because I mean they taste good for one, and they fight just as good as the redfish or a speckled trout does. And that black drum bite, he'll grab it and he'll kind of pick it up and move it, and he'll grab it and pick it up and move it, and then finally he'll grab it one time and just kind of haul ass with it. And that's when that's the thing is that when the first couple times I take people out there, they're like I can't tell the difference because you got 1,000 pinfish eating that piece of crab, and you got to feel this one fish pick it up and move it. Right. So it takes a little while to get used to the bite, but once you get it, then when you feel it actually happen, you're like, oh, there it is. Yeah. There it is. And then you got it. Yeah, for sure. And then, the sheepshead bite's pretty similar. But I've actually tried using those jailbait jigs. Yeah. With a piece of crab on it. And I actually I've got some shrimp boat wrecks that I go to, and it's really hard to use that double drop bottom rig because you're constantly retying. So one day I just put one of those jailbait jigs on and was like, I can fit this through. I can see the coal table when I'm dropping it on the coal table of shrimp boat and jigging up and down, and it's not getting hung. And I'm like, wow, this is, it's kind of nice. Yeah, that's super cool. And it caught fish. I caught, 5 or 6 sheepshead on it, but they were pretty thick. So I think you could have thrown anything down there and caught them.
What's the average depth on a lot of that stuff that you're fishing, those wrecks and stuff you're fishing out there?
Oh man, it don't get deeper than like 13 feet.
Gotcha.
I mean, we've dove on some of them too. Really? Yeah. Especially some of those shrimp boat wrecks. Some of the stuff is still sticking out of the water. Yeah. The like the channel iron on the front and some of the outrigger stobs are still sticking up out of the water. But I mean, like 2 inches. So like, if it's rough at all, don't go out there unless you know exactly where it is. Yeah, you can pile her up on it right through your boat, and you'll be down there too. Yeah, that's why there's so many wrecks out there, is because guys don't know about it. Especially, it usually claims the out of state shrimpers. Gotcha. A lot of the local boys, they know it where it is, but the out of state guys don't know, and they go get their net wrapped around it, and then next thing you know, the Coast Guard's out there saving their life. So, and then there's multiple ones up north, in between, like Stumpy Point and Oregon Inlet, where there's some battleships sunk. I'm pretty sure that one's dead. I don't think they bomb on that one anymore.
Gotcha.
But that one's always been my spade fish hole.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So late summer, you can go out there and, I mean, you can see the smokestack, and I mean it's an old ship. Yeah. And there'll be 20 or 30 spade fish swimming around it, and you're like, oh, this is nice. And we'll take real light stuff out there for them. And really, as simple as it sounds, a cork and a number 2 eagle claw and a piece of shrimp.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
Do you ever chum for the spade fish? Get them a little silly, fire it out behind the boat?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
When we wreck fish, we chum.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
Gotcha.
I mean, like I said, I got my buddy Corey and all the picked crab scraps. We figured out how to take them and put them in a blender. Well, not really a blender, but like a meat processor essentially, and chop and get it all up in a gallon bucket and freeze it, drill holes in the bucket, and just throw it overboard and tie it off.
Wow.
And you get, I mean, it's like you do that when you first get to the wreck, and then, clean your crabs if you're drum fishing, or get you some shrimp out and make some rigs. And by the time you do that, I mean, they're all under the boat.
Yeah.
So, the only problem with chumming is you'll pick through, you'll catch a few black drum or whatever at first, and then you end up losing a lot more rigs to big redfish.
Yeah.
So, you get that. You'll feel the same bite. If you're black drum fishing, you'll feel the same bite, and then you'll set into it and it won't move, and then it starts moving, and you're like, crap, I got a redfish. So, man, there's all grades of shit. I mean, there's like planes out there that I've seen on sonar. I mean, there's cars. I don't know how a car got out there, but there was a car on our, high vis or whatever, the clear view or side view or whatever it is you use. Every light tower that's ever been blown over during a hurricane. I mean, people don't really think about that as a structure, but it's habitat. I mean,
yeah.
Especially, and then, you think about an inlet being right there. A light tower falls over and it's right there at the mouth of that inlet or into the sound. It's going to hold bait, which is going to end up holding fish. So that's, I got a light tower that I fish quite often. And it's for gray trout. And,
nice.
Everybody seems to think that gray trout have magically disappeared and they're no more. And I promise you, I'm going to take you out there and we can smoke about 70 of them in a matter of an hour.
That's awesome.
Every cast.
What size gray trout are you seeing?
I mean, I've caught some almost big as your leg.
Wow. And
I mean, the average, you're looking probably 16 to 24.
Yeah.
I mean, and you'll have some days where it'll be 20 plus all day.
That's
and
awesome.
That's pretty simple too. I mean, 3/8 to a half-ounce jig head and a 3-inch white gold shrimp.
Yeah.
And you better have a bucket of them, because if you don't have a gray trout on bringing your bait up, then the bluefish are going to come swipe you.
Gotcha.
There's some nice bluefish out there too. So I mean, there's two parts of the water column. You got gray trout on the bottom, and then you got your bluefish kind of middle way. And I think actually what's happening is the bluefish are eating minnows and spitting them up, and then the gray trout are just eating the pieces of what falls.
What the bluefish are chopping up, yeah.
So, then I've been to some of these wrecks and have destroyed the speckled trout.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest speckled trout I think I've ever seen caught in the Sound have been caught on some of those wrecks.
Yeah,
So
that's impressive. Do you feel like it's most of the wrecks out? Like if you find some structure out there in let's say the desert of like nothing, and all of a sudden there's structure, is there usually fish on it?
it depends. I
Depends.
mean, if you don't stop and fish it, you'll never
You'll
know.
never know. Exactly.
So I mean, if you come across there's like another shrimp boat wreck, it also depends on the bottom type. The
Yeah.
bottom type definitely, because there's another wreck, shrimp boat wreck that I just thought about that the reason it's not as good as the other one that I was first talking about is the bottom type is different.
Gotcha.
It's you got that the first one I was talking about, you got that triple line hard bottom, which is what you want to see, and then the other one is soft bottom.
Yeah.
So there it'll still hold fish. It's just not as well known and good as the other one.
Right.
So and then once you start getting inshore a little bit, you don't really see a lot of that stuff anymore. You used to see lumps all the way back up to damn PCS. I mean, there used to be. My dad used to tell me that there was a nice oyster bar in about 10 foot of water right off the Indian Island, and it's gone, completely gone. I mean, I think the bottom's been silted over, and it's just no more. I mean, you used to hear people catching gray trout in the Punga River.
Wow.
You don't hear about that anymore either. And like we were talking about earlier, I feel like that's got a lot to do with, we're seeing a lack of oysters, and not really because of the harvest, but the trawlers, and you get a couple bad years of really fresh water kind of hurts them sometimes. But people don't realize it, but that's habitat. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that's habitat, and that helps our sound so much. And everybody's like only thinks about oysters when it comes time for oyster season. Nobody thinks about them during the summertime when we need them the most.
Right.
When it's southwest of Hail Gale for 20 days straight, nobody can go fishing, and it's just beating the hell out of the bank,
Yeah.
churning all the water.
Yeah, the amount of erosion that we were talking about that we've seen up there the past couple of years along the shorelines is incredible. I mean, it just tons and tons of shoreline just being destroyed. So it's crazy. So what do you think what are some of the causes of the loss of oysters up there?
I think it's like we talked about. I can't really just completely point the finger at one thing, but it is the shrimp boats.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 100% a 90-foot trawler, especially our boys. I'm fine with. I don't like it still, but our boys, I'm perfectly fine with. If you're gonna catch shrimp in North Carolina waters and you're gonna sell them in North Carolina, perfectly fine with that. But if they're from Georgia and they come up here with those big overnight boats, 90-footers with 4 doors, and if you ever seen behind one, it just looks like a disc. I mean, it's just plowing the bottom. And, once the oyster gets any kind of silt over top of it, it's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and you can't control where a lump's going to start, per se. So somebody's not going to go out there every year and re-sonar the bottom and be like, oh, here's a lump here, so we gotta exit this off, so you can't shrimp in this bottom anymore. This is closed bottom. If you did that, then there wouldn't be anywhere to shrimp.
Yeah.
The Chesapeake Bay, I think, did a study because they were having the same issues. And this has been probably 14 years ago. And I think they closed. Did they close their oyster? They closed their oyster fishery for a little while.
I believe they did. Yeah, for a short time. I think it's back open.
Yeah.
But
So they got their crowd together, I guess fisheries or whatever, and they talked to the oystermen and said, take your dredges, take the bag out, and we're going to give you a square mile block, and you're going to drag that. You're going to, well, it's not really a disc anymore. It will then become, in farming terms, a chisel plow. So it would bring everything that got completely turned over with dirt. It would bring all that back to the top. So all the shell, any kind of matter, rocks, whatever. So you do that and you close that off. What that does is that allows the spat to come in and stick to something and begin to regrow. So you get that regrowth going, and that takes 3 years for a oyster. I mean, they're filtering as soon as they become shell. They're filtered. That's how they're growing. And we've got, we've got over, I think, 5,000 bags of seed at Shell Point Oyster Company, and it takes them 3 years to grow. But once they're at that 3 year stage, they're filtering, I think, like 10,000 gallons of water a day.
Golly.
So, I mean,
one oyster is?
One oyster. One oyster.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, we look at that, and then we look at also, this is going to be an even worse issue, but the inlets. Mm-hmm. We just had a hurricane, and it completely wiped out. I mean, the problem wasn't actually from flooding from the storm. It was when the storm left, because when the water, we don't have tide,
right?
So everything is wind controlled. So when all the water off Howard's Reef on the back of Ocracoke gets blown to our side before the storm hits, then it rains a bunch. Then the backside of the storm was usually a northwest wind and a howling northwest wind. And then it takes all that water and blows it over there at once. And then there's nowhere for it to go.
Right.
So it goes over top. I mean, water finds the path of least resistance. Yeah. So it just goes over top of the island. And, I mean, I'm sure you saw videos of people driving their boats around in people's yards and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, my buddy Ferris, he was taking jet skis around, checking on people. But that's got everything to do with the ebb and flow of water. I mean, we've got dead water in the Sound. Absolutely dead water. And fish can survive, but it would help if you get that constant flow of nutrients, the food chain, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that's just not happening. Oregon Inlet is a shithole for an inlet. Ocracoke is pretty bad. I mean, my buddies went offshore yesterday, and they said it's bad. It's really bad. And then Hatteras is just as bad, if not worse. So, I mean, that's 3 inlets right there that are supposed to drain and constantly flow water through it that's not.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why our oysters would help, because we're losing our grass. Mm-hmm. And
are you talking about shoreline grass or grass?
I'm talking about subaquatic salve.
Subaquatic
vegetation, yeah. And the shoreline too. The shoreline's more or less the oyster problem. The grass is a inlet problem plus an oyster problem.
Gotcha.
So, it blows southwest out there. You don't go fishing.
Right.
At all. I mean, it's so rough that it's hard to fish anywhere out there. Plus, the water is so, I mean, it looks like chocolate milk. You get a good northeast or northwest wind, it clears up. But, old timers and, used to tell me that you could fish all day out there every day, no matter what the wind was, because you had some kind of break.
Yeah.
Something that was knocking down the waves, and there's nothing doing that anymore.
It's all just trawled flat.
It's trolled flat.
Yeah. You see the same thing in Louisiana, man. Like I've heard stories back in the day in Louisiana where it was turtle grass and eelgrass everywhere on the bottom down there. It could blow 30 miles an hour and it would stay calm. It would stay clear. And now they're not, the shrimp trawling there is not really the big issue, though the shrimp trawling hurts. But the oyster trawling down there, so they drag for oysters, and that just tears the bottom up as well. And there's just no aquatic vegetation anymore, and so it just gets super churned up and nasty, and dealing with the same issues. And it's just scary, man. It's like we want to fix things, but I feel like you look at every estuary, everybody's got all their big problems, and we're just not going in the right direction. There's no real success stories anywhere. They're all just kind of struggling at their own. And
that's what that's what me and my buddies talk about is, why are we always constantly trying to ban stuff? Why don't we get together and try, just like you said, make something successful?
Yeah.
For instance, here the commercial recreational jibber jabber all the time. It's like what I'm talking about would 100% benefit our fishery.
Yeah.
100% benefit our fishery. There wouldn't. Back in the day, there was no commercial recreational jibber jabber.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a habitat, a sustainable habitat, and like I said, I don't want to point the finger, but it's the shrimping.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to not see that, and
you can't really go attack them because there's a lot of money in that industry. But you could work with them. Like I said about the skimmer rigs. We most of my friends that shrimp and do it for a living commercially are skimmer rigging now.
Okay.
Like I said, the yields are better. You do less damage to the bottom. You don't have to abide by trawler laws. So every piece of closed bottom. This sounds bad, but it's not. It's not as bad. So every piece of closed bottom, those skimmer rigs can go in. Now the reason it's closed bottom is because it's brown shrimp, which are on the bottom, not green tails.
Mm-hmm.
So green tails are more your middle of the water column shrimp, and that's what that skimmer rig is really targeting.
Okay.
The trawler is everything. It's not targeted for one species of shrimp. It doesn't matter if it's a green tail, a brown shrimp, a crab. It doesn't matter what it is. It's taking it away, and it's going to kill it.
Yeah.
It's not like gill netting where you pick something out of a gill net, you have to fish your gill net. For one, pick it out of the gill net, you can put it back, and it swims off fine.
Yeah. You drag it around in a tail bag for a while, and it's going to be dead.
For 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And then you pull it up and dump it out, and everything's dead, and you're like, oh, well, just wipe it off beside the boat.
Yeah.
No big deal. But when the skimmer rigs are good, they're good. When they're bad, they're bad.
Yeah,
so
that's the problem.
But the reason when it's bad means that there's no shrimp. We could have had it's just like with the trout. We could have had a freak freeze or something like that hurt the shrimp population. That freeze 3 years ago crushed the shrimp.
Yeah.
Absolutely crushed them. There were boys in Ocracoke telling me that there were icebergs in the sound.
Golly.
Not in the sound, in the ocean, going out the inlet.
That's crazy.
It's that was a crazy duck hunt week, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that being said, so let's jump back into the fishing just a little bit before we wrap this up and talk about, the nearshore wrecks and stuff. That's all good and fine, but if you don't have numbers for that, and the weather's blowing, and you can't get out in the open water, what is kind of your go-to, fishing around home?
Pretty much everything that you do.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Shallow water redfish and speckled
Yeah.
trout on the banks and whatnot.
I actually I figured out that you can wade fish a
Oh,
lot.
cool.
And you tend to be quieter.
Definitely.
Your trolling motor's not beating against the bottom. And, you get 2 or 3 head. I mean, I got some shorelines that are sometimes a 1.5 feet deep, sand bottom. They've got some, 3 to 4 foot troughs in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take people there, throw the anchor out, give you a bag of soft plastics with some jig heads in it and some leader and a stringer and say, go to town.
Yeah.
You can walk. You can walk that way. You can walk that way. I don't care where you go. And then you also, make sure you mark a little line on your rod so that if you do catch something that's questionable, you can at least measure it.
Right.
I do a lot of that. I do a lot of big drum fishing.
Cool.
A lot. Actually, we caught one about a week ago.
Nice.
We start now. Really targeting them. There's really only one spot, so I can't really share that.
Oh, you don't have to share your spot.
But it's they're chasing soft crabs.
Gotcha.
As the crabs start coming in, we're getting ready for soft crab time here. Probably this next moon. And the soft crabs will come up in that real shallow water to try to get away from any predators.
Uh-huh.
And the big drum will follow them.
Wow.
And the big bluefish will follow them. We'll catch. I mean, Connor actually has caught the biggest one that I've ever been on the boat with.
How big was that one?
63-inch female that had a 32.5-inch girth.
Wow.
And if you look at the numbers on the world record, that was the length and girth.
Really?
Yeah.
That was a big one.
So, yeah. So you'll never be able to. I mean, and it was in 3 foot of water. I mean, we could see the fish. And then we went back the next year to that same spot and we caught one drum, and then something hit the front rod, and I ran to go grab it, and the damn thing jumped out of the water, and I was like, "What in the world is that?" And got it to the side of the boat, and it was one of those giant bluefish.
Oh, wow.
And so we went back that afternoon to a different spot and found them freaking tailing.
Oh, yeah, those bluefish will tail like permit, man. It's crazy.
On a flat. And we started throwing topwater at them, and they were smoking it.
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing that I really enjoy is topwater fishing.
Those bluefish are fun for it too, man. They'll crush it.
Speckled trout, topwater fishing, drum topwater fishing. I mean, I love when a drum hits a skid of water. I absolutely love it.
Well, I was going to ask that if you are throwing topwater, what's your kind of go-to plug that you like?
Bone white skitterwalk, baby, all day.
Oh, what? Bone white?
Bone white.
Bone white skitterwalk. Nice.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of people that love that bone color.
Yep. I've got piles of them that have either got, the body's been crushed or it's got a hole in it,
right?
Or the paint's completely gone. So,
yeah, that's impressive. Well, so you do a lot of bait fishing inshore as well, or are you mostly artificial?
I would say I bait fish when I'm offshore at those wrecks.
Yep.
And I'll do. We call it puppy drum fishing. We'll go to those, and the way that I figured it out is a guy that I fish with a lot. I'm typically an artificial guy, to be honest with you. But a guy that I fish with, we kind of sometimes use it as like a cocktail hour.
Yeah.
When I work, especially when I work there, we knock off work, go fishing, go catch some mullet, and then go, throw a drum rig out on a sandbar for, puppy drum, trout, something like that. And I went, if I can catch them with mullet, they're here all the time. So I can catch them with artificials.
Yeah.
So that's really and truthfully how I figured out the weighting stuff was fishing those bars. I mean, there's thousands of little coves with, a foot or two of sand, hard sand bottom.
Yeah.
All in that sand, all on that shoreline. And you hit those with the bait fishing and figure out if there's a fish there, and then you come back next day in the morning and fish it with artificials and catch them just as good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes better because you're really working through the area a little quicker instead of waiting for them to move to you.
And when it rarely ever happens, but when it does, I try my best to get out there. When it blows northwest in the summertime, it is miserably hot. But, at like 11 o'clock, you can go to some of those bars and the water will clear up enough where you can see everything.
Yeah.
And sight fishing. We'll just go park the boat, anchor, power pole, and then just wait. And you just sit on the boat. One guy stands on the console, one guy stands on a cooler, and you just sit there and they just patrol up and down that shoreline.
Yeah.
And you don't really ever see them waking. You actually see them.
Yeah, see them in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of fun. I'm trying to think flounder fishing is always fun too, but we only really get August and September are our big months for that.
Okay. Well, are y'all seeing all three types of flounder in there, southern, summers, and gulfs, or you see
just southern?
Just southern. Gotcha.
We've got a lot of those flounder are coming in from Ocracoke Inlet. And then, they'll hit us first, and then if one or two moon cycles, and then they're all up the river.
Yeah.
But then, you're constantly getting another flow of fish. But typically your big fish are on that first.
On that first push, yeah. Yeah, we're starting to see some big fish in the marsh down here, flounder wise. Like I'll be red fishing. Like this past, I think it was 2 days ago, I was out red fishing, and we got to a spot and I couldn't get my skiff in there yet. Tide was low. We had sand bottom, so we walked in there. We kind of slowly fished our way through it, throwing jigs, and typically if I was in there on the skiff, I would have been just seeing the redfish, throwing to the redfish, and not making any real blind cast. But since we were waiting, we were blind casting, and we caught so many flounder on the entrance to it that I didn't even know were there. Maybe I'd mud one or two when I was pulling in, and I'd say, oh, there was a flounder. But three of them were like well over 20 inches, solid spring fish that I hadn't seen at all. So that was,
tell me if you agree with me on this. We need to have a slot.
For the flounder?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think every fish should have a slot, honestly. And the speckled trout, if you want to get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I don't disagree with that at all. I think speckled trout 14 to 22 or even less. 14 to 20.
The amount of eggs that a speckled trout has after 20 inches, it's thousands of more eggs once they hit that 20-inch mark. Yeah, it's an insane amount. And so, an 18-inch trout is going to be just plenty of meat and just as good as a 25-inch trout.
Exactly.
But you're killing way more babies and way more potential speckled trout. And you got to really think about that. Like when you really think about how many eggs are going to come out of that fish and how many more trout are going to smack your MirrOlure if you let that fish go in 3 to 4 years. You know what I mean? It really does play out like that.
Unfortunately, the ones that start croaking and grunting when they get in the boat, they don't really stand a chance.
No.
The
males, yeah.
They're going into court.
Oh yeah. If that, and that's the thing too, of being able to understand. Like a lot of people don't realize that the males are the ones talking, and just sharing that with clients, sharing that with anglers. Like, hey, if you catch a big fish that's not making any noise, you should let it go. It's probably a big female that's breeding. And I think people are getting better at catch and release and getting smarter at like the right fish to release, but.
They think that they've got to bring the fish in to get a citation. You don't have to.
No, you got a release citation at 24 inches.
Yeah.
So there's no need to.
I don't really see what. I guess for some people but for me, it's getting a piece of paper really isn't.
No. Well, if I'm going to get a citation of anything, it's going to be a citation trout. To me, that's like it's the hardest fish to catch. A citation drum's not hard to catch. But a citation trout's a tough fish to catch. So if you're going to paper hunt, but the other thing too is people you'd bring your bragging place was the dock. There wasn't social media, so you had to bring the fish back to the dock and show people how big it was. But now, with Instagram and Facebook, I mean, it gives you the ability to show your friends, wow, I caught this badass big trout, and I was able to let him go. And so the one thing that sucks, though, is trout, you can never do them justice with a picture. They always look smaller than they were in a picture.
Yeah, they do.
So
they do. They really do. If you're trying to get on this big trout, come up and have one of those cocktail hours with us. We usually we caught one last year that was 31 inches.
Did you really?
On a piece of mullet.
Yeah, I need to come do that.
I heard the story, and I've heard the story from multiple people, so it's pretty well true. All three of them were on the boat. They were fishing a grass flat, and they had, we'll use the mullet head for big drum. And the guy went and picked up the rod and started reeling it, and he was like, man, there's something on here. So he just starts jerking it. I mean, just like thinking it's grass on it. And it wouldn't come off, and he keeps reeling it, and he gets it next to the boat, and the fish easy, like, kind of just floats to the top. Hammer dead speckled trout. It was about 11 pounds, and it had choked on the mullet head and killed itself.
Oh, my gosh. That's crazy.
So, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that is nuts.
You've seen the pictures of the one that ate the 14-inch mullet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people don't realize that guys are throwing baits that are 3.5 inches.
Those big trout are a different animal. They're different than a small. Not that they won't eat that, but you want to eliminate the small bites for the big fish. And I think that's an episode I'd like to do with you this fall. Is just really talk about big speckled trout fishing. We'll hop on here and talk about targeting big trout.
I'm telling everybody this year. I think the state record will get beat somewhere up and down this coast. That state record's going to get beat.
Yeah, there were some big fish that didn't get caught this year, and they're.
There was a lot of big fish that got released.
Yeah, a lot of big fish that got released, and
you got to think about the fish that we didn't hear about.
Yeah, that's very true. The old timer on the John boat called him and let him go. One of those.
His spider cork rig with 15 mirror lures on it.
Yeah, for real. Well, right on, man. Well, we're at like 45 minutes, so we're gonna. I want to give you the chance if there's anything else you want to share real quick before we close her down.
The really just the fall fishing for us is there's just crazy for us. I mean that's my favorite time. The wind usually lays out, and there's so many things you can go do. You can go to those wrecks. You can go. I mean, you don't have enough time in the day to do everything.
Right.
Especially when it's pretty. Because I had it to where, I'd take customers and it was, you go out first thing in the morning, we're going to target trout till 9:30. And usually we're done by 9:30 with our fish.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into, now we're going to go to a flat somewhere and we're going to target drum on top water and sight fish for them. And then we'll run offshore, go catch our gray trout. And then on the way back, we'll stop at another spot, catch our black drum. And then next thing you know, you can't close a 48-quart cooler because it's full of fish.
Right.
It's like, it happens like that. And especially those calm days, man, you can't beat those out there. That's the best.
It just gives you so much versatility. And as a captain, man, it's so fun to be able to take your clients through a few different types of fishing in a day. Yeah, and you need those right days to do it. Most days, it's like you're like, all right, let's hope this trout works, or let's hope these redfish are on this oyster rock. The weather, the wind's blowing, and I need my honey bucket fish here. So
that's right. And then the springtime's not bad, but it just blows all the time.
Yeah, that's what it's been doing lately.
Blowing, it's not so bad, I mean, you can find somewhere to hide.
Right.
There on a southwest wind, you can't. There's nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to hide. Yeah,
There's nowhere to hide. I mean, literally. I mean, from Stumpy Point all the way to Pungo or to Scranton, Germantown, there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can find a place to hide. Typically, there's fish.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's the opposite of what we have here. There's plenty of places to hide, but there's not enough fish that just because you're hiding out of the wind or hit out of the wind, doesn't mean you're going to catch fish. So it's kind of the opposite. Well, sweet. Well, I'm going to link all your social accounts and ways to get up with you if people want to book a trip on the show notes of the YouTube video as well as the podcast here, you guys. And Greyson's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to fish, as well as some of the issues that they're dealing with up there on the Pamlico Sound. So feel free to hit him up if you have any questions or want to book a trip. And again, man, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have to do another one, and hopefully I won't get food poisoning the next time we're supposed to duck hunt together.
We'll look at something closer to the start of the season, because that's when usually is the best on the Sound, is
around Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
for sure.
The Turkey Day shoot.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, man, thanks again so much. I'm going to close her out here. Guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Eastern Current. We are grinding, trying to get a bunch of good content, a bunch of good podcast episodes for y'all. So just stay tuned. We're doing 2 a week right now. Some weeks we're going to be doing 3. But if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, if you just listen, go to Eastern Current Fishing on YouTube. We don't only have these podcasts recorded as a video, so you can watch like you're sitting here hanging out with us, but we also have a bunch of fishing videos, tackle tip videos, all kinds of good stuff over there on YouTube. So go subscribe to our Eastern Current Fishing YouTube channel and let us know what you think over there. But thanks again, Greyson, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. Later.